And this coming 8 years after a former young star wide receiver had a similar injury on that field, a field that Odell Beckham Jr. called on social media Death Life instead of MetLife. OBJ posting that the NFL takes all the precautions in the world with everything else when it comes to player health and safety. Please, please, please get rid of the bleeping turf. Thank you in advance. Here's the laundry list. I mean, you've got Nabers yesterday, you got Beckham back in 2017, and all this in between, including a Nick Bosa ACL injury in 2020. A couple of other Giants receivers in 2022 in Robinson and Shepard, and of course, a couple of years ago, Aaron Rodgers, his first series with the Jets, suffering an Achilles injury. Let's bring in our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. And JJ, this has been the talk of social media for the last 24 hours or so. We know the World Cup is coming to MetLife in just a few months, and they're going to have to put real grass in for that. Many wondering, why can't you do it for the NFL? Could this be the last season of artificial turf here at that stadium?
I would be surprised, to answer your question directly, if this is the last year of synthetic turf at MetLife Stadium. I'm going to answer why there is not permanent natural grass at MetLife Stadium. A number of reasons, and people can say they're legitimate or illegitimate. Number one is that it is hard to grow natural grass in the Northeast when you get into November, December, and January in a stadium that is shared by two teams. So if they play in consecutive weeks or over multiple weeks, right, that it's really hard to keep up a consistent level of playing surface that will pass all the tests and be safe for the players. That is true. Now, you can spend a lot of money on replacing that natural grass. And maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. Maybe there's heavy precipitation and it doesn't necessarily join up the way that you want it to. A lot of people who are grass experts could say plenty more on this, but ultimately about half the league has some sort of synthetic turf and the other half has natural grass. Of course, in Lambeau and Green Bay, they have a hybrid surface. It's hard to go grass in Wisconsin. They spend a lot of money on it, but also, and this is the main point here when it comes to the World Cup and all that talk, it's that at Lambeau, for example, they only have one show in town. It's the Green Bay Packers, and that's the only thing that steps foot on that field over the course of 5 or so months. As it relates to MetLife, as it relates to the World Cup, any of these host sites that have World Cup games, whether it's the finals or not, they are installing grass, and nothing is happening at that site for weeks ahead of that event. Okay, so you're getting this sort of grass and this scenario that you would not get from week 4 to week 5 in the NFL, for example. Also, the sort of grass that soccer players need for the roll of the ball, for the types of mechanisms and the body type of these players is much different than football players. And so I know we had a graphic up recently about all of the injuries at MetLife over the years, and there's no doubt that there have been significant injuries. MetLife did, and this is important to note, and in fairness, MetLife did change the synthetic turf ahead of the 2023 season. So these injuries did take place in that stadium, but it was on a different synthetic turf than what is in there today, right? Really, you can only chalk up Aaron Rodgers and Malik Nabers on this graphic to that turf. So that's what is going on. I don't anticipate there's going to be natural grass permanently at MetLife for the football occupants anytime soon, but I think everyone hopes that eventually they'll get there.
You'd think they could at least get some better synthetic turf in there, because half the league has synthetic turf like the New York Giants and the New York Jets, but for some reason players think that this turf is worse than all the others. Let's move on to the big injury in the AFC, and it's to Lamar Jackson. Obviously not as serious as Malik Nabers, but the question is, how serious is it? Because all we've really heard from John Harbaugh after the game was doesn't believe it's season ending, but we're still waiting on further testing and imaging. What can you tell us?
I'll tell you, it's significant what Harbaugh said on Monday afternoon about Lamar Jackson's injury, that without a shadow of a doubt, he would not have been able to go back into the game regardless of what the score was. I know a lot of us thought, if it were a closer game, he'd be able to tough it out. Harbaugh says no. And when you're talking about a hamstring, that's typically not something where if you can't keep playing one day, that by Wednesday you're out there practicing on it. I think right now, everyone logically should be penciling in Cooper Rush for this upcoming week against the Houston Texans. And I say that because, again, Lamar Jackson missed a sort of gotta-have-it game. I know that we're watching it at home and we're like, all right, Ravens can't win this game. That's not the thought on the sideline with the Baltimore Ravens. They still think they're in it. Lamar Jackson still wants to be in it, and he can't go. And we know how important his legs are to how dynamic a player he is, of course. And when you have that hamstring, we all know that you could tweak it even worse. Maybe he could be able to go this week. But then the doctors and everyone involved may want to take some precaution. I'm not ruling Lamar Jackson out this week. No question at all, I'm not doing that. But it is significant that Harbaugh says that he could not have gone back into the game on Sunday. They have Cooper Rush. They're going to have to start designing this offense and tailoring it to Cooper Rush and what he does. A very different quarterback than Lamar Jackson, ahead of a game against one of the best defenses in the NFL, in the Houston Texans. So, again, no one's ruling out Lamar Jackson, but where it stands right now, on Monday afternoon, Chris, I'd be a little surprised if we ultimately see Lamar out there on Sunday.
They're sitting there at 1-3, and it's not just Jackson. It's a defense that's given up a bunch of points and a defense that has a bunch of injuries right now. We heard earlier today Marlon Humphrey likely going to miss multiple games. Roquan Smith is likely to miss multiple games with a hamstring injury. Matabike is hurt too. What's the significance of the injuries on defense for the Ravens right now?
Remarkably significant. You're going to not have Marlon Humphrey for a couple weeks. Nate Wiggins got injured in that game. Roquan Smith, as you know, got injured in that game. Kyle Van Noy has been unable to play. They acquired Jair Alexander in the offseason. He played week 1, hasn't really been ready to go either. Matabike is out for the season with a neck injury. They placed him on injured reserve a couple of days ago. And then what they were fearing, what they hoped they wouldn't have to do, Matabike is now going to miss the rest of the season with that neck injury. And so without a doubt, you're talking about 6 of the Ravens' top 7 defensive players who may not be available this week or injured in some way. They really just have Kyle Hamilton on that side of the football. The Ravens sitting at 1-3. We talk about the Houston Texans, who they have a very, very good defense, by some metrics the best in the NFL. After that, they have the LA Rams, and then they have a bye. So they may be without half their starting defense this week and perhaps beyond. They may be without Lamar Jackson, a perennial MVP candidate, this week and perhaps beyond. And you look at it, they are staring, Chris, the Baltimore Ravens, 1-5 in the face heading into the bye. And while the AFC North may look a little bit softer than maybe we anticipated a month ago with Joe Burrow's injury in the Cincinnati Bengals, the fact is 1-5 means that you are effectively out of your division race and you're going to be hoping for an AFC wildcard spot. So a very consequential couple of weeks for the Baltimore Ravens to determine if they're going to be playing January football this year.
Yeah,